Chapter 14, World War II is coming. I put together a little screencast for Blue Day and Gold Day. If for some reason the audio doesn't work, use the video slideshow, the PowerPoint, to answer the questions at the end. This is section 1 of chapter 14. We're going to learn about dictators and wars. Use this slideshow and the screencast as your main source, and then answer the questions at the end. Why the hammer? Well, during the Great Depression, countries in Europe and Asia turned to totalitarian governments. I like using the hammer to demonstrate that because if you live in a totalitarian government, the government is the hammer and the citizen is the nail. There are different types of totalitarian governments, as we will see: communism, fascism, and military. All of these combined to cause World War II. During the 1930s, that Great Depression that started in the United States that was so terrible and awful spread throughout the world, and European and Asian countries were hit extremely hard. That, combined with the fact that several countries felt that the way World War I ended and the results of the Treaty of Versailles were extremely unfair to them, and they simply wanted to get even. Here's Asia. The Soviet Union will have a totalitarian government during this era, and so will Japan. As you see the Soviet Union, it will be a communist state. As you see Japan, Japan is hit very hard by the Great Depression. Japan needs resources. Japan needs to expand its boundaries, or at least in their view, they need to expand their boundaries. This will lead to World War II in Asia. On the right, in that nice looking white jacket, the guy with the cigarette in his left hand, that is Joseph Stalin. And it is Stalin who succeeds Lenin. If you remember from world history, Lenin, the guy on the left, is the leader of the Bolshevik Revolution. He makes the Soviet Union a totalitarian communist state. When Lenin dies, there's a scramble for power within the Communist Party, and Joseph Stalin emerges as the undisputed leader. He will lead the Soviet Union during these years. The totalitarian system in the Soviet Union is communism. It's based on the ideal of economic equality. The government controls everything. Wealth, in theory, is shared equally, and there's no private property. Think Cuba, think North Korea. In Europe, nations turn to fascism. Fascism is a different type of totalitarian government. Here you see Benito Mussolini, Il Duce, as he called himself, which is the leader. A fascist government is a totalitarian state with one supreme leader. In Italy it would be Benito Mussolini. In Germany it would be Adolf Hitler. The state or the government is greater than the individual and the individual's rights. But how is fascism different than communism? You can see that fascism allows for private property, capitalism, profits. Italy and Germany had corporations, people owned land. It was not a communist state, but it was a totalitarian fascist state. This is the symbol for fascism. F-A-C-S-E-S. In the Roman era, the fasces was a bundle of rods. So if you would liken this bundle of rods to strength, it's impossible to break the bundle of rods in a fascist state, because every individual rod is bound together by the state, therefore unbreakable. Yet the individual rods have no particular rights or opportunities. They exist to serve the state. That's why it is such a powerful form of a totalitarian government. Benito Mussolini promised Italy a return to the glory days of Rome, As early as 1935, Italy had invaded Albania and Ethiopia throughout the Mediterranean. So who's that guy next to Mussolini? Italy and Germany made a partnership, or a treaty, partner fascist nations right in the center of Europe. Here's what was similar. Both were very bitter about the Treaty of Versailles. If you recall, when World War I ended, Germany had to take all of the blame for the war and had to pay the reparations and had to sign the war guilt clause and lost all their land. And Italy felt that they had won World War I, yet they didn't benefit from the treaty. So both nations bitter, both nations crushed by the Great Depression. If you've heard the stories about the hyperinflation in Germany, where it took a wheelbarrow full of German marks, Deutschmarks, to buy a loaf of bread, both turned to fascism. Fascism in Germany was a result of the treaty and the Depression, a desire for military revenge. Also, there was much fear in Germany of communism, and Hitler promised the German people that he would protect them or defend them against a communist takeover. And it is Hitler that is the leader of the National Socialist Workers' Party, the party that you would know and I would know as the Nazi Party. After we did our World War I Trenches Day, we concluded with a student in each class who was Hitler, who was a corporal, and who served during World War I. Hitler, top left, Austrian-born. Hitler on the right, World War I veteran and leader of a political group known as the National Socialist Workers. And this group tried to overthrow the government in Munich. Hitler spent some time in jail. After he was jailed, his party grew in popularity, and the Hitler portrait that you see in the middle is Adolf Hitler, der Führer, the leader of Germany. While serving time in prison, Hitler wrote Mein Kampf. His autobiography, translated, means My Struggle. Some key ideas in Mein Kampf. There are three things contained in this book that really are foreshadowing what's going to happen in World War II. Number one is the concept, the German idea of Lebensraum. Lebensraum means breathing room or living space. You know, if you look at the map, Germany was penned in on all sides by neighbors. Denmark on the north, Poland and Austria to the east, France to the west. And Hitler felt that the millions and millions of people in Germany needed more room. Just like perhaps in his view, America needed more room, so America expanded during Manifest Destiny. Hitler also believed in Aryan superiority. He preached a violent hatred for not only the Jews but also the Slavs. The Jews of Europe were blamed for the Great Depression. The Slavs in Eastern Europe and Russia were seen as an inferior ethnic group, and Hitler flat out stated in Mein Kampf that he would conquer the Soviet Union and destroy communism. So nobody should be surprised several years later when he invades the Soviet Union. Oh wait, the Soviet Union was surprised, so maybe they didn't read the book. In Chapter 15, Section 3, we'll learn more about the Holocaust and the genocide that went with Hitler's master race philosophy. What about Japan? Japan is an Asian nation made up of a chain of islands. If you see Japan on the right, I put the little image of California there because Japan is about the size of California, yet it had a population of over 90 million. So a booming population, Japan with very few natural resources, hurt very much by the Great Depression. Japan felt that it had to expand or trade throughout Asia. This will lead to a conflict with the U.S. Japan was neither a communist country or a fascist country. Japan was a totalitarian government with the power in the hands of the Japanese military. See the little arrow showing you General Hideki Tojo. It is Tojo that assumes greater and greater amounts of power as the 1930s go on. Bottom left, this is the emperor. Emperor Hirohito was a weak leader, and he really was dominated by what the Japanese military said to do. It is Tojo who decides to attack the United States. It is Tojo who, when World War II ends, is tried for war crimes and is executed by firing squad. As you see the Japanese Imperial Navy flag that shows one sun and the rays outreaching to show expansion, or the goal of expansion throughout Asia. World War II in Asia really began in 1931 when Japanese Prime Minister tried to keep the Japanese military from invading a neighboring country, Manchuria. The Japanese military had the Prime Minister assassinated. Japan then invaded Manchuria, colonized it, took its resources, and really set its sights on controlling and colonizing great pieces of Asia. This is Manchuria. Think of Manchuria as modern-day North and South Korea, as well as a lot of northeast China. By 1931, Japan controlled Manchuria. Within 5 years, Japan invaded China. China, a much larger nation, much more people, much more territory. Throughout World War II, Japan would control large regions of China, but never all of China. China would be a U.S. and British ally in the war against Japan during World War II. This expansion in Asia leads to a rivalry and conflict with the United States, because each Asian territory taken by Japan brought it closer to the Philippines. The Philippines, as you remember, that's a U.S. territory. Plus, Japan built up its Pacific Fleet and really was making threatening noises toward the United States. Here we see Germany and the neighbors. It will be Hitler who expands in all of these directions before World War II begins. Denmark is north, Belgium, France, and Holland or the Netherlands to his west, or on Hitler's western front. And on the east you can see Poland, Czechoslovakia, and Austria. In violation of the Treaty of Versailles, Hitler rearmed Germany. He took over Austria without even firing a shot. He just marched into Austria and took over. It's known as the Anschluss. And Germany took over Czechoslovakia. All of this happened before World War II officially was declared. If you look at this map of Greater Germany 1938, what animal does Germany look like? I'll give you a hint. Little Red Riding Hood. About ready to gobble up which nation? World War II will begin in Europe on September 1st, 1939. After Hitler took over Czechoslovakia, both France and Britain agreed that they had to draw the line somewhere and that they would step in if Hitler became aggressive and took over any more land. When Germany invaded Poland, France and Britain would declare war on Germany. World War II is underway, a full 2 years before the United States is involved. The Soviet Union for the time being is neutral. The United States for the time being is neutral. Here you see our last image, the German Blitzkrieg. A Polish citizen would see this in his or her backyard. After viewing, you can answer the questions.